idag är det fokus på domarna igen. Men det här är alltså kontroversiella matcher som har fått att domarna blivit sparkade. De liksom blivit av med sina jobb. Vi tar och kollar på videon.
Following the controversial UEFA Champions League semi-final second leg game between Barcelona and Inter Milan, news broke that Paul van Berkel and Dennis Higler, who were both VAR officials in that game, have not been selected to officiate at the new FIFA
What händer någonting då?
Club World Cup coming up this summer. Then later it was revealed that Szymon Marciniak, the centre referee from that game, has been taken off the shortlist for all the European finals this season, despite previously being a frontrunner for the Champions League final. This has led us to look at other such games that have had monumental effects for referees. From those who were sacked to those who were suspended and those forced to retire. These are 7 controversial matches which cost referees their jobs. Of course, we'll start with the recent semi-final game between Barcelona and Inter Milan. Barcelona were knocked out of the Champions League after a 7-goal thriller at the San Siro, which ran for 120 minutes, and it was a very interesting game for the neutrals. But there were a few question marks about the officiating, which has been met by criticism from some huge footballing figures. Arsene Wenger came out to say that Inter should not have been awarded a penalty for Cubazi's tackle on the Toro. Mateo Lahoz, a former Spanish FIFA and UEFA referee, said that Barcelona should have been awarded a penalty kick for Mkhitaryan's tackle on Lamine Yamal, saying that the midfielder made contact twice, once in the box. In this case, the referee initially awarded a penalty, but the VAR changed the decision
to a free kick. Alltså jag kommer inte ihåg det här. Det kan ha varit för att det var lite tag sedan och att det var så jäkla mycket som hände i de här matcherna. Och jag som Barca-fan säkert koll på det, men jag som inte är något fan av något av lagen såg liksom bara det underbara i den här sjuka matchen. Men när de tar upp det där nu så känns det som att Barca kan ha blivit lite fucked.
The referee to take a look for himself at the pitch side monitor. beIN Sports reported that Acerbi's 93rd minute equaliser was invalid because there was a foul on Gerard Martin from Dumfries in the build-up to the goal. And there are also other claims for penalties for a handball from Acerbi and a Bastoni foul on Lamine Yamal. As you can see, it wasn't just fans calling out the officiating. Big names in the footballing world were calling out the referees and the VAR officials in that game, which made everyone really pay attention to the decisions from the match. So it's not really a surprise that the officials are now facing some measure of punishment. Marciniak, in particular, is one of the most highly rated referees in Europe. He was in charge of the 2023 Champions League final and the 2022 World Cup final. But the controversies from the Inter vs Barcelona game seems to have tainted his reputation. But there was a much bigger referee controversy and this one involved David Coote. In his case, it was a video that started his downfall. He was filmed on a couch calling Jurgen Klopp an arrogant German cunt, and that began to raise questions. But what really proved to be the nail in the coffin was the games he officiated where he appeared to have favoured Liverpool's opponents, particularly the Merseyside derby where Pickford ended Van Dijk's season with a horrible tackle and went unpunished for it. Guess what? It turned out that David Coote was the VAR official in that game, and he refused to call the referee's attention to the horrifying tackle. It was also discovered that in 2019 he had reportedly pre-arranged to hand out a yellow card in a championship game between Leeds and West Brom because he wanted to help a friend of his. David Coote being sacked and subsequently being banned by UEFA. Now the next entry takes us to the World Cup. Have you ever seen a player get 3 yellow cards in the same game?
Vi har sett klippet att han har fått 3 gula. Men jag har inte sett vad som har hänt med domaren efter det här.
Not going to go unpunished. It was the 2006 World Cup and Graham Poll was the only English referee at the competition, but he didn't do much to fly the flag for his country. It was a game between Croatia and Australia. After showing 2 yellow cards to Josip Simonic, he failed to show him a red card as he's required to by the laws of the game. The red card would eventually come though.
Har det varit en förklaring till varför det blev så? Var det bara miss eller?
Croatian at the very end of the game. But after such a ridiculous error, it was clear how everything was going to end. That was the last game Graham Poll ever officiated.
Nej, bara en sista match. Va? Poll announced his retirement from international tournament, citing the error of the reason as the reason for his decision. Är det sant? sant?
And the following day, he
Det var den
announced his
sista matchen de
retirement,
där.
leaving the game for good. Now, of course, we just could not talk about controversial referees losing their jobs without talking about that one guy from the Barcelona versus Chelsea game in 2009.
Det sant?
But before we get to that, if you aren't
visste
yet
jag inte.
subscribed to the channels, go do that right now.
Ja,
so
prenumerera här
that you don't miss
också.
out on
Det
any of
fixar
our
ni.
amazing content. Done? Let's now talk about Tom of Rabo, the man who was in charge of the 2009 Champions League semi-final game between Chelsea and Barcelona.
Yeah.
The game, which was later dubbed the scandal of Stanford Bridge, was littered with a lot of controversial refereeing decisions from start to finish,
Det är så
including
sjukt.
multiple penalty shouts which weren't given. Barcelona would end up advancing to the final on away goals thanks to a late goal from Iniesta, and Chelsea could not help feeling robbed. Nobody in England was happy that day, not the fans, not the media,
Ja, jag
and
hade
certainly
ingen
not
aning om den här
Didier
domaren.
Drogba and the other Chelsea players. Things were so bad that the referee had to be escorted out of England by police after that game because he feared for his life. Following that performance in 2009, of Rabo, who had initially been shortlisted for the 2010 World Cup, was eventually left
Han skulle alltså döma VM 2010. Men fick inte göra det efter den.
out. He would end up leaving his position as a FIFA referee in 2010, preferring to focus on officiating games only in his home country of Norway. But that was not even the first time a Champions League game between Chelsea and Barcelona cost a Scandinavian referee his job. It first happened in 2005, and this time
Okej. Men han dömer alltså bara i Norge nu. Det är en ny nu, det är en svensk. Anders Frisk. Frisk slutade att döma efter matchen på grund av dödshot. Efter att Mourinho säger att det är hans fel.
around, it was a round of 16 fixture, and it was Swedish referee Anders Frisk who was in charge of the knockout match. Frisk sent Drogba off in that game after showing him 2 yellow cards, and Jose Mourinho, who was in charge of Chelsea back then, controversially accused Frisk of having invited Barcelona manager Frank Rijkaard into his room at half-time, an accusation which would turn out to be unfounded. As a result of that, Chelsea were charged by UEFA, and Mourinho was banned for 2 games.
Nonsense.
Despite the fact that Chelsea ended up advancing, the referee still received death threats to his and his family's lives, forcing him to go into hiding on account of fear for his and his family's safety. Not long after the game, he announced his immediate retirement from football in March 2005 after 18 years of officiating. In December of that same year, Frisk was honoured with FIFA's presidential award to recognise him for a career cut short following death threats against his family. Now, with this next guy, it wasn't just one game that cost him his job, it was a series of games. And we're talking about German referee Robert Heuser. The man himself admitted to being at the heart of a €2 million match fixing scandal, which involved him fixing and betting on games in the German Cup, as well as in the second and third tiers of German football. It was later revealed that this scandal involved players, coaches, and an organised crime syndicate in Germany. After all of this came to light and investigations had been completed, Heuser was sentenced to 2 years and 5 months in prison and banned for life.
Fängelse! 2 år och 5 månader fängelse, och han får inte döma något mer under hela året.
From any role in
Eller
football.
under hela livet. Han får inte döma någonting.
Referee who was found to have been involved, was
sant?
sentenced to a year and a half in prison and was also banned for life from any role in football. While Felix Zweier, the man who recently took charge of the second leg of the semi-final between Arsenal and PSG, was banned for 6 months for having allegedly collected a €300 bribe from Heuser. We'll now wrap up this video with Lee Mason. He was the VAR in charge of the Premier League London derby between Arsenal and Brentford in 2023.
Vad hände den matchen?
And he was responsible for incorrectly allowing the Brentford goal to stand despite an obvious offside in the build-up.
Det är offside, men han tillät det.
Brentford were able to secure a point, and that really hurt Arsenal in the title race
det gjorde det verkligen.
It was so bad that Chief Refereeing Officer Howard Webb had to call Arsenal himself and apologise.
Howard Webb känner man igen.
6 days after that game, Lee Mason left PGMOL by mutual consent, and since then he hasn't been involved in any Premier League game. Do you know of more referees who have lost their jobs because of controversial games?
Han som blåste av tidigt, han måste ju ha blivit av med det.
Also, what do you think should be the correct punishment for referees who have been found to have made
läskigt när man säger Jonas Eriksson i den här videon.
especially in big games? Should should they always be fined, sacked or suspended?
Ja.
Tell us what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video,
Svårt.
give it a thumbs up and
Jag tyckte den här videon var
subscribe to
riktigt
the
bra
channel.
alltså.
Also, turn on the bell notification so that you never miss.
Det är några kläder här. Nej, det blir ingenting. Otroligt intressant. Jag vet inte mycket om domarna alltså. Och framförallt så här efter Barcelona-Chelsea-matchen och sådär. Ingen aning. Jag tyckte det här var intressant. Vill ni se fler sådana här videos? Som vanligt får ni gärna skriva det. För att jag väntar på er respons för att se vad vi ska reagera på liksom. Jag tycker att det mesta vi reagerar på är kul. Allt vi reagerar på är kul. Hoppas ni också tycker det. Vi syns imorgon för då en till ny otrolig video.